I'm just going to ask you, can you just, whatever it is, make it interesting. Don't make it boring.
Dude, you're a creep. Get it? C.R.E.E.P. We're talking about 5 pillars that we talk about in terms of creating outstanding customer experience. The order that those go in happen to spell the word creep. That's a bad thing, but this is a good thing.
In real estate, the customer has the personal relationship with an individual, so they want that individual to be doing everything, right? And a lot of the times we see the tail wag the dog where like the agent's like, well, they want me there. I need to be at all the showings. And they let the customer drive the SOP of their own business. That's a massive fail. So the way I used to do it is I would just, do you know how often you buy clothes?
Here's my rule. What I'm going to do.
Wait, what are you talking about?
That's my point. I'm bad at this.
Welcome back to another episode of Who Cares? I'm Jay O'Brien.
I'm Jeff Jekyll.
Ooh, got some Irish crickets there?
What's that?
It comes from Mr. Kevin Dillon on Victory the Podcast.
Victory! Okay, wait for Connolly.
Irish cricket.
So what's going on? What's up? That's a nice jacket. Tell me about your life.
I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to acquire any more clothing in 2025. I'm slowly going to get rid of stuff. And then yesterday,
The whole year?
I'm going to try. Do you know how much? I mean, like,
Do you know how often you buy clothes?
I know. That's the whole point.
That's never going to happen.
That's the point.
It won't happen through the end of the month.
Well, I got this yesterday. So.
Wait, what are you talking about?
That's my point. I'm bad at this. But here's my rule. What I'm going to do, instead of saying that, because same thing, Ash said that's unrealistic. You're not going to not get anything. I've tried this before, as you know. Every time that I get, for every one article of clothing new that I acquire in this year, I have to get rid of at least 5 things from my closet before it enters the closet.
You just have way too much shit.
I know, but if you get 20 things, it's 100.
Where'd you get that?
Online. I don't remember. J.C.R.E.E.P, Bonobos.
Well, we're really doing it. You got the iPad. I got the printout.
I mean, it really says a lot about our personalities, doesn't it? You're such like a...
I'm just an analog man living in a digital world.
Yeah, you're quite analog.
I got a couple screenshots yesterday sent to me from the social medias.
Oh, yes, big announcement.
You announced some things yesterday.
Yeah.
Maybe you should share what those announcements are.
Well, we didn't even control this. So our agent, literary agent, speaking agent, which is at Gray and Miller, Scott Miller, they announced our signing, which has been a while now, but that we're starting to work on our first book. And I realized when that went out, I got tagged on social media. I know you don't do the socials. The LinkedIn you did and shared. So we shared it everywhere that you've got to share it. And it made me realize very quickly that we've told nobody.
But that's probably okay.
I think it is. But
it's too soon to talk about.
The podcast's biggest fans, Barbara and Peter, they didn't know. No idea. They were like, what the heck is, everybody's, really, really excited.
There'll be something to talk about when the book comes out. That's
sure.
where it stands.
But did you feel like I honestly felt like it was like, no backing out now. It's out there. Like, which a lot of these things, when you talk about like, I'm going to commit to whatever it is, or goals for a year, or something big that you're going to do that's a really tough undertaking, a lot of people will say like the number one first thing you should do once you've made the decision yourself, declare it as publicly as you possibly can, because now you have a massive accountability.
I don't know how massive it is. Exhibit A, that jacket that you bought that you weren't supposed to buy, but you told the whole world that you weren't going to buy things, and then you went and
I didn't
bought them.
tell the world.
And then you said, I'm going to change the rules. Actually, I just need to get rid of 5 articles for every one I buy.
But that's actually a good point. I did not declare that publicly. I put it down in my journal for the year and whatever. Like, you didn't know it.
Okay, so now it's public.
Now the declaration is public. I will hold to that. For every new article of clothing I buy, can I exclude like socks?
Well, I guess you're not giving away socks because they're probably tattered. Whereas the other articles, I hope you're donating.
So I signed up for the thing for the LA Fires. You're going to get matched with somebody who's your exact size and likes your same things and whatever. So you have somebody that you actually, can give things to.
Nice.
But very quickly, really cool about what's going on in LA. They're like inundated with clothing, blankets, and like they have got too much. So it's like, donate these other things. So we're starting to do things that we have in excess that are like strollers and things that are like harder and not too many people are doing. But I thought that was really, really cool that they're like matching people like or similar interests, similar tastes. It's not like
and a lot of people are showing up for this. I mean, obviously locally, but even other states, other countries.
Mexico and Canada came down with planes and firefighters.
Japan just donated $2 million. That was announced like yesterday.
I don't know how to react to that. $2 million seems like a very small sum under the circumstances.
I don't know. I mean, I can't think of any time that like fire went down in a city in
You can't think of any time.
Tokyo and the U.S. is like, here's money. I don't know. Maybe I'm being ignorant. I really don't know. But like,
I'm not going to use the word ignorant, but
no one has to do anything ever, like.
But yes, the U.S. spends mind-boggling amounts of money to help other countries. So, but that's awesome.
Well,
It's great that they're
sure,
showing
that's
that.
a blanket statement. But think of a fire like equivalent where they've stepped in. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's really cool. That is cool. And then firefighters from Mexico actually making their way up here. So that's really cool, especially considering all the border conversation. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
let's not get political.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. What are we talking about today?
Today, the topic that did not originate as a suggestion from ChatGPT that I thought we should talk about.
And I'm just going to ask you, can you just, whatever it is, make it interesting. Don't make it boring.
I don't even understand why.
Just make it stimulating, I don't want to be bored.
Dude, you're a creep.
Oh.
Get
okay.
it?
Okay, I see where this is
Get
going.
it?
Radiohead reference. Got it.
I don't even know if we're allowed to do that, because if we can, we should put that song play in the back. So, C.R.E.E.P. C-R-E.E.P. We're talking about 5 pillars that we talk about in terms of creating outstanding customer experience. So the order that those go in happen to spell the word creep. That's a bad thing, but this is a good thing. Number 1, consistency across touch points, or consistency in the customer journey, which it's basically saying I'm ensuring a uniform way that people are treated across all platforms. So let's say that it's in person, it's on the phone, it's on web, but also that it is through every different level of person or management or something that that the person deals with throughout their journey with your customer, with your company. The interesting thing is that C.R.E.E.P. actually kind of goes, I think, in order of things that are most important from the very, very get-go. Okay. So like consistency of the experience of the touch points from the moment somebody even makes their first stumble onto your webpage or to learn about your company. So when you experience inconsistencies, it erodes trust. And you haven't established any trust in the very beginning when you first do your first business with a company. So that's when it's the most vital that they establish that quickly. So can you think of a time when you experience an inconsistency with a brand or with a company or a service that kind of like felt off, where it wasn't consistent with what you either knew them to be or expected them to be from the get-go?
So with this, is the question that the consistency is specifically about the way they're making the customer feel or the customer experience, or is it just like general SOP for that business?
It could be either, because if it's just SOP, either way, let's say if just their procedures different very, very significantly from either talking like, let's say one store to another or one salesperson to another, or like the online, the physical, the whatever, you immediately don't trust it as much, right? And that will tarnish the experience. So it could be either.
Yeah, I'd say in the customer experience side for sure, especially as it relates to like making exceptions on, let's say like a return or something like that, where someone's like, oh yeah, we'll do this for you. And then the next time around, like, oh, we're not going to do it for you, and you're like, okay, well, I don't really know, like, is there like an overarching policy here? And I think that's also, we talked about this on a previous episode with trusting brands like Southwest or Amazon, or, I'm almost always going to look to purchase something on Amazon if I'm buying something online, because I just know the return policy like the back of my hand, and I just know they'll make it right. And I know if it shows up damaged or if it gets stolen or whatever it is, like I basically don't need to worry about it. Whereas like anyone else, like have to go through the process of reading between the lines and seeing like, is this going to be taken care of? So yeah, I mean, like, I've definitely experienced those inconsistencies for sure. I feel like depending on the size of the business, that's fairly common.
For sure.
So like developing an SOP is critical, and something that can easily be followed in a way that is in a system. So whether that's through automation or systematized, even by a manual human, the fact that it all lives somewhere and is visible and you can check. So like if the whole team quits tomorrow and a new team comes in, they could actually see where you left off versus like, oh, we used to do it this way and whatever. That's probably the takeaway is like, show me, don't tell me.
1,000,000%. I mean, that I think is like the most important thing. And you're such a systems person that it's essentially saying you can do everything in your power to preach to every employee that you have, every person that's ever going to touch a customer. Here's how we do things. Here's how you talk to people. Here's how you actually show interest in people, or whatever the level of quality that we expect. Then you walk away, and like it or not, they're left to their own devices.
Yep.
So, right, you have to like not only create those standard operating procedures have ways to check them, right? Like listening to calls and making sure that people are speaking all the way that you would want them to. But then automation, I think that's like what we have to do these days.
Yes. So the C on that was consistency across touch points.
And
So-
user journey, the whole entire customer journey.
So you asked me where I can see misses in that, or if I've ever seen misses in it. Let me ask you, any companies that you know of off the top of your head that do it particularly well?
Oh, do I be self-aggrandizing and say I think we do a pretty good job of it? I do. I honestly think that we do a pretty good job. So I think this comes down to culture. So when companies have a culture that, like, one of our key tenets that I think we talked about at one point is people like us do things like this, or how you do anything is how you do everything, right? Like if you kind of establish that there is, in the absence, let's say, of an SOP or a situation that somebody gets in where it's not usual, it's not common, it's some unique thing, they have to come from a core place of this is just how we do things in order to create consistency when there isn't a process there. Because you can try to cover all your bases with process, with automation, with whatnot. Things are going to come up, like sideways things are going to come up. So like Chewy is where I get dog food, everything I've got a 13-year-old Frenchie. Chewy, I've used them for forever. I have like all my things on auto. I've had like 3 situations where something happened where, let's say, like one time I remember it showed up at the doorstep. This big box of food showed up at the doorstep. It was riddled with ants. There's absolutely no way that was Chewy's fault. I mean, something probably happened in shipping. A hole got punched in this thing. Ants got in there, whatever. I messaged them, and I literally was open about it. I'm like, hey, this thing's riddled with ants. I'm sure it probably didn't happen before you packaged or whatever. They made it right instantly. And then I literally called, I think, to do that. On a separate occasion, I just went through their chat function and I just said, hey, this happened. I forget what the problem was. It came, but in the previous week, the dog had an issue and she was prescribed a prescription food, right? So I just bought a $120 bag of dog food. And now I'm like, well, it's not what I'm supposed to be giving her. Like, I know that's not your fault. Now this is through chat, not talking to somebody. Exact same protocol. Right? Like every single time in my experience, every time you speak with somebody there, and I know I haven't experienced this, but I know that they also do when you lose a pet and you basically turn off an auto shipment or something, and they have reason to believe, well, this probably means the pet doesn't need it anymore. They send you a handwritten card. So this is clearly a company we should actually try to get somebody from there. They're so impressive that we should try to get to talk to somebody there on Who Cares. But I think they're doing it right. They've clearly started from the top and put in process so that everybody in every area of communication knows how to treat people.
That was the example I was going to give, is that when I lost my dog, I was using Chewy, and that's exactly what happened. They ask you, just like anything, why are you canceling a subscription? So they've got your answer right there. It's like discrete data in a drop down. It's very easy to categorize. You're not typing. It's super simple to create a process around that.
Yeah.
And then what do you know? I get this card sent to me. Like very, very thoughtful, like, and just smart.
So smart.
Just really smart. Like the DoubleTree, they do the chocolate chip cookie. Like there's all kinds of things like that.
That's like a surprise and delight. I don't know what category that would fit into.
Well, the other thing is, like, we're talking about generalized SOP that kind of hits top down for every single customer. Are there ever situations where that's unique to certain classes of customer? This is for my VIPs, this is for my A-list.
This is a J. O'Brien. VIP is always better. Yeah.
Anna Delvey. Yeah.
Is that where that comes from?
Yes.
Sure. And I think, like, in the right businesses, that's important. You're paying for, like, let's say a freemium service, or you're paying for something where you are more committed to the brand or more committed to the service and you're paying for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's just think about like flying first class as an example. If you fly economy, like, you know what that looks like. You've got an assigned seat, you're waiting until like your zone is called. You get back there.
Well, that's Southwest.
Wait, what's that?
That's Southwest. We're saying where you don't. Oh, you do have an assigned seat.
You do have an assigned seat.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
same as first.
And but you're boarding like at a different time.
Sure.
Right. Your seat is obviously different.
Yeah.
What's offered to you in terms of food and beverage is different.
Yeah.
Your bathrooms are different. Like all of that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's consistency you can rely on. I don't know if you'd actually call that service as much as you would just general process in terms of value, what you get, what you can expect to get.
What you paid for.
Yeah. But typically, you'll see that you're boarding first, or maybe it's like you're able to change flights for free, or have an extra bag, or whatever it is without an additional cost. Like those are consistent SOPs that are followed through and through that you can rely on.
So we just did the C in C.R.E.E.P. R is responsiveness and proactivity. Essentially, being thoughtfully responsive, but also I think what's important here is knowing the expectations of your customers. Knowing the expectations in terms of responsiveness of your industry is also really, really important. So to be proactive in heading off issues, but when I'm talking about the industry, like you tell stories of a decade ago, you were in real estate, and in that industry, the responsiveness or the response time is, I would say, unreasonable. But it's very, very different from, a lot of other industries. But the idea is, like we were talking about, that these kind of go in stages, C.R.E.E.P, of things that you have to be more mindful of earlier on in a relationship with a customer or client. Because, like you've talked about a million times, in the first few weeks or whatever it is, the response time better be like this. But after a certain amount of time and providing good customer service, you've established benefit of the doubt. And now you can kind of loosen that up a little bit.
I also think that there's no problem with drawing a line in the sand and coming up with or addressing what is reasonable and what is unreasonable, right? So I never did the whole answer your phone all the time, because first of all, that argument doesn't even make sense. When people are like, someone calls, pick up your phone. I'm like, I mean, if you're good at what you do, I don't care what it is. Like right now, phone's face down, someone's blowing me up or whatever, and you're like, so I'm supposed to answer that? If by the very definition of you being successful at what you're doing, you're not going to have all these windows of availability where you could pick up your phone and be on demand all the time. That's just not possible, right? Yep. So setting clear expectations for sure, but also building that into the system where there's a process where you're like, hey, I'm responding to all calls twice a day, or internally we're like, hey, everyone's going to get a response to their email by end of day no matter what. There's never more than 24 hours that will ever go by, not even 24 hours, where someone doesn't have a response. But to email and expect a response 10 minutes later, not only is that unreasonable, but it's grossly inefficient. We can't be running a business with these knee-jerk, using email as an instant messenger. Cannot do it. So one of my biggest pet peeves ever, actually. And then setting expectations for process as well. In real estate specifically, and there's a lot of businesses like this where the customer has the personal relationship with an individual. So they want that individual to be doing everything, right? I want you at the inspection. I want you here. I want you there. And a lot of the times we see the tail wag the dog where the agent's well, they want me there. I need to be at all the showings. And they let the customer drive the SOP of their own business.
Yep.
That's a massive fail.
Yeah.
And not only that, but other clients can feel how scrambled you are if that's how you operate. So the way I used to do it is I would just outline all of that in the beginning. Here's exactly how the process works. Here's the person you're going to be dealing with anytime you're looking at a home, anytime you have a question about this. So they feel taken care of. And they feel okay, there's a method of the madness. People start to get nervous and anxious when they feel like they're communicating to no one or they don't know what to expect. And so they get a little bit more anxious.
Yeah, I think a good way to say that is they will get anxious if they don't feel like anyone is in control. So you need to establish really quickly that you are in control. Otherwise, they will try to be in control for a feeling of, lack of anyone being in control. Right. So it's super important to be responsive to we're not saying don't be responsive to your customers and clients. Of course, make sure, like you said, you have a process where they are going to get a response. And then the second part of this is proactivity. So it's essentially saying, especially if a client is this kind of person that's going to be all up in your business and wanting these things, be proactive in getting them information before they even ask. And that will change the dialogue. That'll change the way that they, are asking for or not having to ask for things.
Yes. I'd say here's the easiest way to solve this. And here's a perfect analogy. If you're at a busy bar and everyone has been in this position before, you're trying to order a drink, you're trying to get the attention of the bartender. You've been there longer than the person that just stepped up. And you're just trying to make eye contact with them, right? You're not saying, dude, come make my drink right now. You're just trying to be acknowledged.
Yep.
And one of the biggest mistakes that people make here, the bartender that is, they ignore you. And that's what's getting you agitated.
Yeah, you just want to know that they're aware of your existence.
If they simply acknowledge your presence and said, hey, I've got 2 people before you. Hey, I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Whatever it is, you'll wait forever.
Yep.
Right? Because you're okay. You're like, you see me, we're good. I'm not like fighting to be seen amongst all these people. Similarly, in business, I think a lot of people fail to respond, or they don't have great news yet. And so they like just let the silence fill up.
Sure.
That's creating the anxiety. Whereas if they just emailed the person back and said, hey, just reaching out, letting you know, I do not yet have an answer on this. I will update you by end of day. Even if end of day comes around, it's like, I still don't have an update for you. I will contact you tomorrow. You're good.
Yeah.
Right?
You're keeping them updated.
You're keeping them updated.
Because the worst thing that could be happening is them sitting there thinking you are not paying attention to whatever this thing is. You're at least letting them know, I'm on this, I'm paying attention to it, I just don't have an answer for you yet.
Exactly.
So that is proactivity. Third, the first E, which is honestly your love language. So they're going to have a lot to say here, is the ease of interaction. So making things super easy for your customer, however you can. This is like we talk about taking off your business hat and putting on the consumer hat. Everybody knows what it's like to have some process that should be easy or feels like it should be really, really simple. And somehow you got to jump through hoops and you end up doing errands and there's nothing you hate more.
Yeah. I do everything I can to just not engage with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, my love language, acts of service for sure. The thing I strive for most in life, frictionless. Just take the friction out of everything. Make this easy for me.
And you're extreme, but you're not at all unique. And demographically, a consumer, like we talked about already, how people like below, let's say the age of 40 or, well, I'll put myself in this category, appreciate experience more than they do actual things, or, you know, they appreciate travel, et cetera. This is the same point, right? It's like basically saying appreciating an easy experience. I want my time. I want my freedom. I value my freedom more than anything. So that one of the top things you can do for them is help them get whatever they want to get done quickly and easily.
Yeah. And I think there's actually a lot of opportunity here. So there's like the very obvious things, which is the thing you do as a company, like whatever your business does, that thing in itself needs to be easy for the customer. So I'll give you an example. This e-commerce website that we've talked about before, a clothing website, It is hands down the worst that I've ever navigated in my life. There are no filters. Everything's jumbled in one place. You're scrolling forever. You got to click into it to look at size. You got to click into that to add to the cart. Then you got to go back and you start over. It's awful. Yeah. Whereas another one, it's like the filters are beautiful. You can hit one button click on the size without even going deep into anything. It's so efficient that, you know me, it's like at the end of the day, the clothes are both cool on both sides. It's not cooler on the other side where I'm going to go through the hassle. I'm just not. It's like, I'm sure plenty of people do. I won't.
Yeah.
So the thing that you're offering has to be easy to the customer for sure. That's just like the box to check. But the opportunity, the white space to go above and beyond that is like, how do you do things that are exceptionally easy for the customer that don't even tie in directly to your offering? Like 11 Madison Park feeding the meter for you when you're sitting down to dinner.
Sure.
Like you're making the whole dining experience so pleasant and so easy because I don't even have to worry about where my car is parked or if that meter is being fed because you're doing it for me. And that has nothing to do with serving food. Like if you can inject things like that into your business, that is leaps and bounds ahead of the competition.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to bring up the filtering on, because clearly I've got a apparel shopping problem. Yes. So I go to a lot of these sites, right? And what's interesting is like I like never know whether to view those things when a company does that, e-commerce site does that. I try to view it as like not myself, like not myself, the person who's going to dissect the business decisions that this company is making, and just view it as like general public. Not to say that we're smarter enough, but like that's just the way that my brain works. So I'm thinking everybody knows the reason you've chosen to, because by the way, the e-commerce sorting, the filtering, the categorizing, everything, this has been around for 20 something years, dev-wise, the tech-wise, right? And there's huge platforms that you can just outsource to and you know pop it into your store and they're automatically there. So this is clearly a choice that they've made. I'm going to not name that company because I like them. I'd love for them to send us stuff, but they've made a choice consciously to say, you know what? And this is my assumption. We want our consumer to look through everything because you never know what's going to catch their eye. They might think they're looking for a hat, but I want them to go through these jackets that are 10 times the price. That's my assumption of why they're doing it.
Flawed thinking.
It's totally flawed thinking, right? But we all know examples of these things. Like, and honestly, I've learned a lot from you of like, companies are willing to change their SOP a little bit for you if you just say, look, this is how I work. And I need you to, so like, for example, like a doctor's office. I've had doctor's office like, no, I'm sorry, you got to wait and fill out the forms here. I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm going to go to a different doctor or a different dentist or whatever. It's like, okay, you know what? We can email these ahead of you time. You can print them out. You can, do it on your own time and then bring them in. It's like, I know these things have to be done. There is homework that is required to working with some companies, but like at the very least, you can let me do it on my own time.
Yeah, totally. Right? And it's funny, you mentioned like intake forms for probably like 20 years now. Anytime I fill out one of those forms, it always asks for your social security number. You notice that?
Oh, yeah.
And I've never filled it out once. Not once.
Because I'm going to give you my insurance card and you're going to have this information anyway.
It's like, you don't need it. I'm not giving it to you. And that's the end of it. It's like, I'd never heard about it. It's no one ever pushes back on it.
I wonder why that is. Like another example that I can't believe is still happening. No, I mean, like, I get it. So companies, again, it's e-commerce. Companies will be like, I know that you purchased this online, or you'll see their return policy, and they'll be like, if you want to return this, you have to return it to the store.
Right. So like, okay, that's actually a really good example because you do see that in a lot of different ways. Like I just had a situation where I had to cancel an online subscription, and there's options to modify, there's options to pause, there's options to do all this. There's no option to cancel anywhere. And so I end up finding like a customer service email address that clearly is offshore. Clearly, like it's not even part of the same ecosystem of the website.
It's a different domain.
And it's so blatant that I'm like, hey, am I missing where to do this? Like, tell me where to do it. And now I'm actually interacting with someone. They didn't say, yeah, just go here. They know there's nowhere to do it. So they're like, may I ask why you want to cancel? And going back and forth. And I'm like, dude, this is the cancellation process. Because, okay, why does a business do this? They're hoping that there'll be enough friction that you give up.
And you just stay on.
Okay, and maybe that happens with a small fraction of people, but that would have to grossly outweigh the other side of it, right? In order for that to pencil. And you'd have to be like, yeah, prioritizing customer experiences is our least priority. And all we care about is if we can pick up some crumbs over here for people that just gave up.
It's just short-sighted too, because the other side of it is not that the person stays on or some person pushes far enough to be able to get the cancellation. The other side of it is that person goes to one of thousands of different Reddit forums or somewhere publicly and starts to say, hey, this company's made it really, really difficult. And you start to erode trust with anybody else who wasn't even thinking about canceling, but they start to question your legitimacy and your trustworthiness, even though they're still a member of the whole deal. They're still paying their annual service subscription or whatever, but they're like, wow, I don't know that I want to do business with a company that works like that.
So what do you think are some of the biggest obstacles that customers face when they're interacting with businesses?
I think it's these. I think it's like having to do things that are not necessarily either required. Like if you have something like a social security one's a good thing. That's a small one because it takes 2 seconds. But there's a lot of times where a company will ask you to do something, fill out something, jump through hoops, go to a different place to book your thing, or like some of your credit card stories of like having to go through and jump through a million hoops that isn't really necessary. They can help you more easily, but they just have this process that's unnecessary. Yeah. Or when they don't give you the ease of doing it, at least in a way when it is required, at least in a way that makes an effective use of your time. It's kind of, a lot of this all comes down to just respecting people's time, right? Respecting other people's time. If you come at it from that perspective, you will create ease and frictionlessness. So the second E is emotion and empathy. Like I said, as we get further and further down this list towards the P, these are things that become, as a relationship deepens, as you have a customer or client for a longer period of time, you have the opportunity to go deeper. I think from day one, you need to show empathy for the person, which I guess is also, like we were just talking about, in ease of interaction, like respecting their time, etc. But showing empathy, coming from an emotional place, it's I don't say easier. You have more opportunity when you've been working with somebody for a while to do that, right? Like leading with emotion, leading with a relationship focus. This is what I'm talking about when, like, at this point, you've earned the benefit of the doubt of a lot of these things. So, like, the earlier things that we've talked about, answering your phone immediately, being responsible, like, you've earned the benefit of the doubt right now. At this point, you need to start focusing on things that you can, like, take it up a notch, go bigger, develop a deeper relationship with people.
Yeah. Okay. So ultimately, people buy people. That's since the dawn of time, people buy people. But what you're talking about is like this element of built-in forgiveness. So like, you've got to be good at the thing, right? Just like your product's got to be good. You've got to be good at your job. No matter what you do, you're an accountant, insurance agent, financial advisor, whatever it is, you have to be good at that thing as the barrier.
Like the operational role that they are expecting.
You got to check those boxes. Have to,
Yep.
right? Above and beyond that, expressing empathy and actually building this personal relationship will create built-in forgiveness for the times where maybe the service or product falls short.
Sure.
So instead of just biting your head off like, hey, you didn't deliver on the thing you're supposed to deliver on, it's like, hey, I know this isn't who this person is. I know that's not who this company is. Mm-hmm. I know that typically they operate in a place of actually caring, actually trying to do what's right. And so I can kind of rest easy knowing they'll make it right, or there's got to be a great explanation for this or something. So critically important to always be illustrating empathy for sure.
Yeah, benefit of the doubt is what you're earning with treating people this way. And, you know, when you're leading with emotion, you're leading with empathy, you're thinking about these things, the way that you can operate, or the way that you, like, we talk to a lot of people about quantitative results, right? So like you've set up a situation where your entire company, you're creating consistency, you're doing all the C.R.E.E.s, right? Across all boards. And the way you measure growth, a lot of times is numerical, right? Like people are measuring it, company owners, operators are measuring it in growth of referrals, they're measuring it in cross sales, they're measuring it in retention, et cetera. What's really hard to measure, I always say, we ask people all the time, the qualitative stuff is so hard. Please measure this for us, which is exactly what you're saying. Like it is, you know, you treat somebody really well, you show empathy, you show emotion, they're just not going to be a dick, right? Or like their threshold for being a dick is a lot higher, right? Like, so the problem comes up, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They're going to expect, well, this is not normal for this company to have a problem. So I'm going to wait. Like I'm going to hold off on my complaint. I'm going to assume that they're going to do it right, whatever it is. Measuring that, I think like if we can figure out a way, that would be, it's like salespeople or people who are having customer conversations, aside from like their NPS score, but to just kind of the general feeling of how customers and clients communicate with them. If we could measure that, this would be so easy to explain to people how it changes your business.
I mean, we could probably just go in the other room and ask our customer success team, like, hey, do people usually come in hot, or are they usually pretty cool? You know?
Yeah. We hear that all the time. Like there'll be things that will happen. There'll be a hiccup because there are going to be problems. There are going to be hiccups. And we're sitting here being like, oh man, I wonder if someone's going to be upset about that. And our, account manager will be like, no, they literally said like, you guys do everything you possibly can to make it right. Well, we know you got your back.
We definitely have situations like that for sure. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this in a previous episode where we say like, if you're working with a company that operates in a place where they say, not only are we going to make it right, but we're going to make it better. Mm. That is actually very unique. Most people don't do that. Most people are, you're like, my food came out cold. And they're like, sorry, we'll get you a new one. Hey, the steak is cooked wrong. Like, I'll go recook it. You're like, that's not solving the problem. Like all of my friends are eating. Mine came out wrong. You can't just do the thing that I originally paid for. Like, of course you can, right? But it's like, you're not leaving any impact. If you went above and beyond, hey, we went ahead and took that off the bill. Oh, okay, there it is, right?
Yeah, or here's the dessert or whatever it is. But basically, all you did, if you then solve the problem, like, well, let us give it another try.
Yeah, exactly. You're not doing me any favors. I actually was surprised yesterday I had this happen to me. So I'm doing all the, the United Defense stuff.
Sure. I'm just going to hang really close to you because I have no defenses.
I will protect you.
That's fine.
And they said, hey, like so-and-so instructor is sick for tomorrow's class. So we're really sorry. We're going to have to cancel it. I want to rebook you. And I've added an extra credit for another class.
That's awesome.
In your account just for the inconvenience. And I'm like, whoa. That was really unexpected and really appreciated. And by the way, they gave me over a day's notice. They weren't like, hey, your class in 2 hours. Like, They're
Oh,
like, tomorrow. This is tomorrow. I'm like, wow, that's really impressive.
That should be standard practice for anybody out there that runs a gym, runs something where you have classes. So if you're thinking about, you're putting yourself in the place of this person. So now I've canceled their class, right? That's the first thing that I did that screwed up, right? Because they expected to go to, but I've also, they had this time booked. So I have now also made it so that they cannot do something else if it's like a day is maybe a decent amount of notice. But look at it as I've done two things wrong here. I canceled the class and I prevented them from being able to do something else that they otherwise would have been able to do because that time is still blocked.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting. Like if people went out there and be like, there's two things, I got to do two things. I can't just be like, I'm going to give you a makeup class. I have to go above and beyond because I screwed up two things.
That's true. I concur.
Yeah, I concur. You know what? I do want to hit on training employees to be empathetic, be emotionally invested, and connected during their interaction. I'm probably going to say this a whole bunch on who cares. I think in 2025, Zoom and the fact that we're looking at people now is one of the best things that ever happened to customer and client relationships. And the reason is you can see somebody's, especially with a lot of people working from home, you can see somebody's life behind them. I don't turn on blurred backgrounds. Don't make me think that you're at the beach in Tahiti or whatever it is. Let me see your background. Let me see that you've got 2 kids and that you love the Philadelphia Eagles and that you, all this kind of stuff. And then let me use those things to try to learn who you are and literally get emotionally invested and empathize with you. And so setting these kind of SOPs for people who are going to communicate, again, to try to get consistency, you give them tips and tricks and tools to be able to have things to jar them. If they're not naturally an inquisitive person who's going to get personal with people, give them these tools and say, here's what you should do. Here's how you should lean on it.
You were mentioning emotion playing into creating memorable experiences for customers. What role does it play? And can you think of a time where you experience this as a customer?
See, it is really hard. Like we talk about, I go and you do too. We generally go to hospitality experiences because they're the people that do it the best.
Can you not talk about something that's hospitality? Let's go back to something that is above and beyond and completely unrelated to the thing that you paid for.
Experience created by a company that is above and beyond. How much does it say that I'm struggling so hard to think of one?
I think it says a lot. I think that's illustrating the white space among almost every single company out there. Like Gary Vee has been preaching this for 15, 20 years where he says, you're a media company first, and then you're the thing. Like all about marketing, being out in everyone's face, communicating on social media, that sort of thing. We believe that you are a hospitality company, maybe not first, I don't know, but you need a hospitality element in your company to not feel like a commodity and to be relevant for the long term.
Yeah,
for sure. So going back to the real estate stuff, when I used to sell real estate, my job is to represent a buyer or a seller, represent their best interests, get them the house they want, sell their house, whatever it is, do all the paperwork, like market the home. It's to do all these things, right? And to actually accomplish the sale. That is me doing the job. But what we did with my team was we would insert all these personal elements to the interaction that would either take care of things for that person that were helpful and thoughtful, like sending them moving boxes, transferring their utilities, taking care of the forwarding of address, all of these like things that are like, wow, that's like all stuff I'm going to have to do as the buyer or seller. That's just being handled for me, like this white glove service. And then above and beyond that, sending them to dinner to congratulate them when the deal's closed, sending a mobile car wash detailing service the weekend after their big move. Like the list goes on and on and on. And maybe perhaps one of the biggest takeaways there is that it never stopped. It wasn't like, oh, this is all part of the transaction. That's impressive enough that, okay, this is part of your SOP, which is extremely abnormal for a real estate agent. But the fact that every 3 months or so after that, you're just sending me something that has absolutely nothing to do with market updates, real estate, this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think one of the first things I ever sent was an umbrella. And it's basically, this umbrella went out to like all my clients and it was in the winter. And I basically said like, hey, keep this in your car. You probably already have one. If you don't, here you go. But if you do already have one, keep it in your car for in the event you run into a pedestrian in the rain who doesn't have one and you can be the hero. Like things that are thoughtful like that, things that are elevating the experience have nothing to do with real estate. That's piercing through the emotion and empathy. And I believe that almost every company out there has opportunities somewhere in their business where they can do something similar.
Yeah. If you sat down, if every company that is currently fixated on just the operational transactional elements that they are expected to do, that's the definition. I am an accountant. Here's what I do. I do your taxes. I do. And they sat down and said, let's think of a whole bunch of things that we could do just because of who our clients or customers are that have absolutely nothing to do with the service that we provide. You're like, and a lot of people aren't creative. So it's like they can't, they won't be able to do that. But they just brainstorm on a whiteboard. What could we do that's completely, or maybe tangential, maybe not tangential? And you'd at first think that they're ridiculous, right? Like the 11 Madison Park stories some of them are absolutely preposterous, like getting somebody a sled or to go play in the snow or going to their house and taking a champagne bottle out of a freezer. It's like, this has absolutely nothing to do with the service that you're providing. But I bet if people took that approach, and almost nobody, I think, has ever done that.
I think it's a good exercise because maybe what we challenge people to do is say, do this with your team, see what you can come up with, but then do it with your list of customers, like 10 of them, and or people who've maybe never done business with you. Say, this is how it works when you work with us now. If you were a customer of ours, is there anything you could think of that would make this better? And just see what people come up with. I would be willing to bet that the customers would actually have a harder time coming up with
100%.
stuff because it's so detached from what they expect that. And that, again, that is the opportunity.
That's the white space. Yeah,
that is the opportunity. You're hitting them in such an unexpected way that it leaves a profound impact.
The customer currently views you as only the business or person that provides that service.
Yes.
So they're going to think in terms of, well, do it faster, do it easy. That's wild. Okay, we're getting to the last letter, which is P for personalization. So a lot of times, like, there's this day and age when people talk about personalization and customer experience, they're talking about going through the data and knowing, all of the interests and potentially spending habits and social media habits and, interests of the demographic of the people that you take care of and doing it with a fine-tooth comb in data, which that's all true. That's personalization when it comes to regular CX view. For us, the way we view it is more around treating the person like a person, not necessarily like the person who is just a customer of your business. So we've talked a whole bunch about going deeper, finding out these things. But once you have that, once you have this individual person, this Jay O'Brien, who's not just customer 16743, how do you utilize that actual relationship to make that person feel special?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I know you've got your examples with your kids and having a hotel actually recognize you've got kids and here are their names and here are their hobbies and interests, and catering to those. That's huge.
Yep.
There's certain restaurants like that I frequent that they've got something logged in the system there that says, this is who this person is. This is how often he comes. This is what he likes, dislikes, whatever. And it's the same process every single time. They take me to the best table in the restaurant, and the chef comes out every single time to say hello. There's like an extra something or another that's brought out, at some point, like free dessert, like all these things. And it makes you feel special.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, wow, that was really personalized. Like they're all, by the way, coming to the table and addressing me by name.
Yep.
So something's logged in there,
There's a sliding scale on this too, because it's like, yes, addressing by name, having the data, you can get super dorky on what personalization means in CX. But like, so we are members of a private club, right, where they should know us, and that's a level of that's upper, right? So we're talking about the same thing with flying first class, et cetera. So when we go there, the wait staff, for the most part, they know what we've been drinking at lunch every single time, right? So when we get there, we sit down, we got menus or whatever, those things arrive at the table. But just maybe this week, we went to a restaurant down the street that we go to a good amount, right? Like maybe once a week or once every other week, whatever. Yep. Usually have the same server. But two things happened this time. Actually, it's happened the last couple of times, but this time, one, we sat down. Within a minute, same thing happened. The drinks we've been ordering, she came over, she brought them to us. She says, hey, I took a stab. Don't know if you want those. Just let me know. We're like, absolutely, that's perfect. So they also know that we keep a 1 hour block on most days. We get there at like 12:10, and we're trying to get back by 1 o'clock. When we go, a lot of times it's at a time where we have a meeting at 1 o'clock. They've started to know that. We walk in the door, it's one of the first things out of their mouth. They understand, hey, got 1 hour right now? Okay, let's do this.
Yep.
Like they don't know. Now she knows our name. But it's not personalization to the point of like, they don't need to know my name. They actually don't need to know that I've got a wife and kids and do all those things. Personalization in this situation is, I know these guys are coming in for a very short time. They want to get in, get out. They want me to present the bill right with the food, if not before, so that that's not something we have to deal with at the end. And these are the drinks they've been drinking. And it's a game changer. Like, I literally said it while we were sitting there. This feels like a private club. We'll come back here all the time.
Yeah, that's a good example of personalization, because it's like, it's not like she has like a place settings with our names embroidered, or it's not like literally personalized.
That'd be great.
But there's definitely no one else in there that's coming in and asking for the check with their drink order. But so she just knows this is how we roll. This would be really helpful for us, and now caters to that specific interest.
Again, though, it's a hospitality company.
Yes.
Right? And challenge yourself to make it nothing that has anything to do with the service that you are providing. Like, get out there, get weird. Like, think of things through. This is, a lot of people will edit as they think or ideate. I know you hate that word.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, I know, but it's just in my vernacular for 20-some years. Don't edit while you do it. Literally throw everything on the wall. It could be have my wife make them her famous spaghetti sauce recipe and give everybody a bottle of that and just say, oh, this is my wife's spaghetti sauce recipe. That'd actually be kind of cool. Throw everything up there, put it on a whiteboard, and then test this out. Like, it's going to be a game changer. That was it. That's C.R.E.E.P. We'll have some stuff in the show notes, but that is consistency across your touch points, responsiveness and proactivity, ease of interaction, emotion and empathy, and finally, personalization.
Who cares?
Yeah, we do. And so do you.